Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into our deep dive as we're going to be going into the MCP tools for our AI agents, going into a little bit more depth on how we actually built the system out, covering that Xano B&B scenario. Now, I'm Cameron Booth. I'm in developer education, and I'm accompanied by Daniel Petro, developer advocate. And to set the stage, we're going to be doing this all inside Xano, a visual platform that allows you to develop world-class and secure software. You can store your data in a Postgres database. You can connect to other systems via API and develop complex logic in our function stack and really just connect a bunch of workflows together. And you can also build AI tools or building tools for AI agents. Again, all visually allow you to sort of expedite that development process and extend that natural language component to you and your users. Now, we're going to do a little bit of that deep dive, as I had said, into the MCP tools for our AI agents, looking at that Xano B&B scenario that we presented. We'll be taking a look at that front end, as well as the N8N and the actual tooling inside Xano. We'll show how everything is interconnected and how you can go ahead and replicate the same behavior, the same systems, and accomplish what we've shown in our webinar. So we'll go ahead and hop into this. I'm going to go ahead and pass that mic over to Daniel now, where Daniel's going to go ahead and demo this for us. Daniel, I'm excited to see what we're going to be dealing with here today. Mind explaining what we're going to be taking a look at?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much, Cam. All right, so here we are inside our demo, and if you missed the actual demo portion, you can go ahead and watch the other video, which will be linked in the description or show up on your screen. But the important part here is that we are passing in our session ID. We're passing in our auth token and some other metadata as well for the AI agent. So if we hop into our N8M workflow right here, we can check at this when chat message received node, and you can see some of the metadata that we're passing in through the front end to this agent client right here. And as you can see, we have our property ID, and that is what we're going to be passing to the AI agent. I want to just call out real quick that we've done this one way, but you can also just create a tool that will surface this property ID by the agent itself. So if we hop back in here, we can go ahead and test this tool, make sure everything's running correctly. And as you can see, it is successful. And apparently it's not done yet. So we'll go ahead and wait a few more seconds. There we go.
Do you mind clicking on that AI agent so we can take a look at that prompt? Because I feel like that's an important aspect of this. We're not telling necessarily this agent to do anything in any particular order. We're giving it that metadata, and it's then deciding.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Cam. So as you can see here, we have our chat input as part of our user prompt, but we're also including some additional information in that message on behalf of the user. So we're including that property ID.
And as Daniel, as you had mentioned, we don't have to do it this way. There's many different ways to cut the cake. We could take a look at the dates of the booking and then have the agent figure out what property to pass in. But for us, we're hard coding it, or well, at least passing it in and saying, this is the property ID.
Yeah, and there's no like proven science here. I would highly recommend taking advantage of all these amazing tools like Xano and N8M, which allow you to develop extremely quickly so you can A/B test different methods and see what works best for your specific use case. All right, let's go ahead and hop into our Xano project here. So as you can see, we are first going to look at our database. You can see we've been doing some testing and messing around with it. And inside our tables here, we have everything pretty much that we would need for our Xano B&B application. Everything from property records to amenities, issues, notifications, etc. So you can go ahead and click this Show Table Relationships button, and you can see how all the data is linked throughout our database. And let's quickly hop over to our API endpoint. So as you saw in the previous demo, in the other video, we are logging in. All of this is sitting behind Xano authentication. So I quickly want to hop into this auth.me endpoint and quickly show what is being output here. So inside our users table, we are storing some additional information that we are surfacing through add-ons. So what this allows us to do is reference data from another table, and then we can customize the response of that data as well. So basically what we need here is that property ID based off of how we've built it, and we're going to pass that through. Anything else you want to call out here, Cam?
Well, I think it's important to highlight the idea that there are no inputs for this. We're just passing in the auth token. So in that front end where we're passing in the metadata, that auth token is also simultaneously being passed in, and we're not specifying to our agent necessarily to use this, please use this auth token. It knows intelligently, and then is able to return that information here to the front end.
Exactly, and this goes the same. This is the exact same thing for our AI tools as well. We can authenticate our tools, and it will utilize the auth token to surface that information. So one thing I want to call out real quick is you can quickly turn any API endpoint into a tool right here. So you can go ahead and click that and save it. And now we are inside our AI tool right here. And all it is it's going to run this endpoint. And then if I go up to these three dots, I can go ahead and give it a description. This is only for your internal use, but then you can configure the authentication here, and then provide the AI with tool instructions. So with whatever this tool does. So I'm going to go ahead and hit back. And I think it doesn't make sense to really go over the other tools. I want to hop straight in to where our MCP server lives. So here you can see our server. You can quickly click here and see the different connection URLs with the different methods. And then if we go in here, we can see all our different tools. So I'm currently looking at all of these tools, and you can see some are disabled and some are enabled. You can see which ones have authentication here, when they were created and when they were published. But what's even cooler is that we can go ahead and see our request history. So these are all the requests by the AI to use these tools. So we can go ahead and see this property details tool and go in and see what information the AI provided as inputs. Remember that we are not, I guess in this case, we are providing it with this property ID, but in other cases, you don't have to specifically tell it which to use. It's intelligent enough to go and use other tools at hand to surface this information, and it will provide the proper output.
I think we'll see here as that demo continues on, sorry not to cut you off, that
No,
when we do list the amenities, and then we don't have to specify to the system, use these amenities, it knows. And again, just building off that idea where we don't really have to be deliberate or explicit with what we're looking for, it knows. And it also, in part, knows based off of the directions and instructions we provided, as we had briefly had seen, as you had shown the tooling instructions.
Yeah, and to go even further, we can go into our settings for this server and provide MCP instructions. So instructions for how to use this entire server. And this will be provided to the AI to kind of guide it along, whether you can see basically how we've provided it with pretty explicit instructions for our demo because we want it to follow our SOPs and certain guidelines. And we also want to make sure the demo works for y'all out there. But as Cam was saying, I think if we go into this alt property search tool, we can see this is one of the ones where it went ahead and provided the inputs without us explicitly saying what that amenity ID is.
And so the scenario here is that user, they want a private pool. And they are raising the issue, there's an amenity dispute. There is no private pool. In the French description, it said that there would be. In the English description, it's, well, there is no private pool. So what we do when we're in this chat message is we say, hey, there's no private pool. And then from that point, the MCP client connects to our MCP server. The agent figures out which tooling to use. Now, we aren't telling it, hey, by the way, the private pool, this is its UUID. It actually uses a tool to determine that. And so then it passes it into this endpoint and it returns then the properties that we had seen within that demo.
Exactly. And then just to clarify what's going on in this function stack right here. So as we mentioned in the previous video, you can make internal DB requests inside a tool, and you can do anything you can with a function stack inside a tool. But in this scenario, we're also simulating an external API request. Although this is just making a request to our own Xano API, but you do have the option of, using any third-party API, and highly recommend using the API request assistant for this if you're trying to connect to any kind of third-party service, which makes it super quick and easy to get started.
Absolutely. I'd like to take a quick look at how the agent knows what to do depending on the issue raised. I believe that we have an SOP tool, and this SOP tool is pretty simple. It takes in the issue type, which is determined by the conversation contextually, and then it returns that issue type or the SOPs for it to follow.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, it's really phenomenal what LLMs can do. But I think their true superpower is understanding our intent from natural language. And so this is a demonstration of that power, because we said there was, some kind of issue, and it determined which type of issue it was. And that's why it passed in amenity mistranslation. And that way it knew which SOP to go and grab based off of the issue type. So we can see the output from our SOP guideline table right here, and you can see the different steps that the agent should take when dealing with this type of issue.
And again, this is that natural language approach. Beforehand, you had to have a developer chain all of these things together sequentially, pragmatically. But now it's this natural language, almost like a project manager talking to a developer, saying, "Hey, we need these things to happen in this particular order if this is true." And it simplifies the process, and it makes it more accessible as well, and just allows you to really build and do anything with this kind of functionality.
Exactly.
And so there from the SOPs, we are looking at the actual property. So once we've determined it's an amenity mistranslation, when the user says, I believe it's a mistranslation and provides that context, then we'll go ahead and actually pull open the property. And we'll then have the agent determine, is it actually a mistranslation? And that's what we're seeing here when it actually compares these descriptions.
Yeah, so as we can see in the request history right here, it first uses the SOP lookup tool, and then it follows it up with double checking the property information. So it went ahead and it looked up the property information, and then it came to the conclusion based off of the property information and the SOP guidelines and the user query that it was indeed a mistranslation. And the next step after that would be to follow the SOP right here. And it tells, it basically offers the user multiple options of ways to resolve this issue, essentially.
Yeah, we have, I believe it's the alternate property search at the very top there. But it also will take into account really just what we're saying in the SOPs. Is this individual eligible for a credit or eligible for a relocation? And in accordance to the SOPs, it will either present one or both, or something else if there's something else to be determined. And from here, again, the real magic behind it is that we don't have to specify in any great detail, not with logic at least, with written word for sure, but we don't have to program anything. This again is a barrier that we're sort of eliminating with this natural language approach that allows you, your users, anybody really, to be able to communicate with the system.
Exactly. And here I'm just showing that it surfaced two other properties that have the amenity that the user was looking for. And because that is what I chose in the demo, I actually asked it to show me alternate properties first, because it gave me those two options, either credit or rebooking a different property. And so I wanted to see if there were any good options. But in the end, I decided I just wanted that credit instead. And if I go ahead and see the booking credit tool, you can see this is exactly what was executed when I told it I would like the credit instead. So we can see like a specific credit amount that was applied. And I believe this is in cents, which is why it's 2,500, which is equal to $25. And the cool thing about this workflow or this tool in specific is that it's basically has some conditional logic inside of it. So it basically is able to run this deterministically based off of how our system should work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the ability to do the logic. We can hand create this logic, right, pragmatically. So we still have control over what we want the agent to do, if we want to, of course, inside our function stack. One of the things I'd like to take a look at real quick, Daniel, is that list amenities function, or tool, I should say. That list amenities tool. And if we take a look at it, we'll notice that it's returning all of everything. There is no input, and the output is the entire list. Now, nowhere inside our tooling are we isolating any of these amenities. We're not pragmatically creating anything to filter this list. In fact, we're giving it all to our agent, which then determines contextually which UUID to send and use in that alternate property lookup. Which this is, again, sort of like that real magic here that exists with this agent or LLM capability. The MCP server really abstracts a lot of that creation process, really.
Exactly. They are it. I don't know if I should say they or it, but it's becoming a lot more human in that sense in its decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, from here, we also are doing things with the data, right? We don't have to, but in our example, we do store data. We do create data. We interface that database with the tools. Everything is sort of like interconnected, right? And that's the way that our tool or our system has been built. Let's go ahead and take a look at that credit. We can see it exactly. We could see that we have that user ID as well as that property ID. So we're passing in these table references inside Xano. Very easy to create these table references. But then we also have that credit amount. So we're able to, again, with magic, have this all created and have this all populated for us.
I quickly want to hop back into the booking credit tool just to showcase how the authentication works. As you can see here, we've enabled the authentication. You can go ahead and disable it or enable it within the sidebar right here. And within the add record statement, we are just referencing that auth ID. So the AI knows exactly who it should give the credit to without us providing anything other than the property ID and then the max credit. Actually, I don't think we even need this max credit input, right? It'll query it based off of the properties set max credit. So you can ignore that.
Yeah, and I think that that demonstration here, or at least the example of having this input, it illustrates the idea that there's, again, many ways to cut the cake. There isn't one
Yeah.
particular exact way to do it. And offering these, I guess, the dual entry points, whether it's a parameter or whether it's the actual querying from your database, both are viable in the sense of being able to accomplish what we're trying to do, which is create a credit for a user of a particular property.
Awesome. All right. I hope you guys found this helpful. And I'm going to hand it back to Cam right now so he can go ahead and wrap us up. To you, Cam.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. And well, as we can see, there's just so much that you can do with just MCP servers and the agentic workflows where you don't have to specify things pragmatically with logic. Now it is written word, it's natural language. And as a caveat, I do think it's important to state that, the less words you include, the less deterministic and less probable you'll actually have a favorable outcome. Whereas you articulate and you add more to it, you'll probably get the results that you want using these agentic workflows. It's the same as any LLM, really, where if you provide less, you get less. You provide more, you get more. So as you're developing and as you're building, just ensure that with these instructions and these tools, that you are adding what is sufficient, what is necessary. And as a small point, Daniel and I have found that it's very easy to A/B test. We actually have notebooks, or whether it's your cursor or simply a Word document, where we have different versions of these prompts. And then we'll go ahead and iterate until we find the one that works. Now, I would like to, of course, also let us know about what's coming soon. We've talked about a little bit about the authentication, and well, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to security. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at, is how do we secure our agents? So we're going to be sort of like looking at the beginning, the middle, and the end, and how we can get these tools to work securely. And so that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to look at authentication, logging, and just in general MCP security, so that you can build confidently, visually, and with control. Because ultimately, the way that we believe it at Xano is that your agent should never be in a black box. You, as the developer, should have control over what it does and how it does it. So we're excited to be able to show this very soon. We hope to see you tune into the security webinar. We'll be covering that security. Thank you so much for watching, and happy building.